Hi everyone, welcome back to part three for the food series videos. Today we're going to be talking about reducing risks in the kitchen. Um, so if you're someone who has a lot of pain in their upper arms, or you're someone who's easily fatigued by having to reach for things that are heavy like flour, you're going to want to put those heavy ingredients into smaller jars or containers and put them at waist level on your countertop. That way you don't have to keep reaching for something throughout your cooking, right? If you're someone who has some vision problems, you can use a marker to write in that ingredient name or maybe a label maker with large font. That way you don't have to accidentally confuse salt and sugar. If you're someone who has pain in their lower legs while you're cooking, you're going to want to try to use a non-slip cushion kitchen mat. It not only decreases your risk of slipping, but it also improves your standing endurance when cooking, right? So it alleviates that pressure on your joints, provides cushion support, and relieves pressure. So that way you don't have to develop any pressure ulcers if you stay into one position for too long. If you're someone who has low vision difficulties, you always want to try using contrasting colors. So instead of putting pattern on pattern, which makes it harder to see what you're cutting if you're using a cutting board, you always want to try putting light solid colors on dark solid colors or vice versa. If you're having difficulties keeping your cutting board in one position for too long while you're cutting, you want to try using a non-slip cutting board mat or using a wet paper towel underneath the board, which works just as fine. Like in the previous videos, you always want to do your best at preventing injuries. So when cleaning dishes, you always want to use cleaning gloves. That way your hands don't dry out. And if you don't have those, just remember to lotion before and after, and always wash your hands before that. When you're cutting jalapenos, lemons, and garlic and other strong aromatics, you want to use latex cooking gloves or plastic cooking gloves to prevent your hands from cracking or stinging. When cooking, you always want to keep clean. So wash your hands for 20 seconds, which is around the length of two birthday songs, before and after cooking, when touching raw meats, and when using the bathroom. And you also want to keep your kitchen clean and dry after every time you cook. And a great way to do this is to clean as you cook. So if you ever have any downtime while something's cooking, make sure to clean your surfaces. And lastly, I know this one is going to be very controversial, but you really don't want to clean your chicken. You don't want to clean your chicken. Studies show that if you wash your chicken, it's going to spread that bacteria all over your kitchen. And so what you actually want to do is just pat it down dry and let the heat from the cooking kill off all that bacteria. You're cooking at a very high temperature that the bacteria can't survive at. So if you cook your chicken right, you're not going to have any chance to make yourself sick. You also want to keep the floors clear, keep them dry, put away things you aren't using. The more clutter, the more chance for accidents. You want to turn your handles inward, especially with boiling water. And you also want to have good lighting. So turn on all the lights or maybe use some natural lighting from your windows. You also want to keep your knives sharp. A dull knife is much more dangerous than a sharp one because it can slip off of what you're cutting and into your skin. You want to defrost the meat in the fridge, not on the countertop. That's a great way to develop some bacteria on your meat before you cook. So you always want to do it slowly in the fridge from your freezer. You always want to have a first aid kit on hand just in case anything happens. Immediately take care of those cuts and wounds. You want to have to try to get shatterproof dishes if you're someone who has hand weakness, hand grip weakness, or trembles or tremors. And you always want to keep your knives in view. Don't put them in the sink in a bowl of water because you're going to forget about it. Reach into that bowl of water and cut yourself. Try to keep it on the surface of your countertop. That way you can actually see. If you're someone who gets overwhelmed in the kitchen, use checklists. It's great for cooking, shopping, and cleaning. There's apps or there's also little sticky notes that you can use for that. Try to use an alarm. That way you don't have to keep an alarm in your head. And you also want to rearrange your kitchen so that way you don't have to keep going back and forth to get the things that you need. So if you're someone who really values tea, you want to put the teas together along with the tea kettle next to the faucet, the honey and the sugar and the cups and such like that. That way you don't have to, you know, down dart around the kitchen. You also want to reduce distractions. So if you get overwhelmed easily, don't feel bad. You can ask people to leave you alone while you're cooking. And always, always, always during your day, take deep breaths. If you're someone who has a lot more attention or cognitive problems when in the kitchen or even throughout your day, try to use the stop strategy. So S is for stop. Take a few seconds to stop and breathe. Take a deep breath. And then T for think. Did I forget to do anything? Did I forget to turn off the stove or the oven? Did I forget to take out the chicken to defrost? And then you want to, observe. Did I leave anything on or in the way? Observe your kitchen, make sure everything's dry, everything's put away, there's no clutter. And then P, you want to plan. What do I do next? If you notice that you didn't take out the chicken to defrost, plan to take it out and maybe set an alarm for next time. That way you don't forget. If you're someone who also has arthritis, here are the do's and don'ts. So you don't want to use your hands or your legs during the flare ups, right? If you're flaring up, try to use your other hand that isn't flared up. Or if you have a splint, put on that splint on the flared up hand or body part and let it rest. If you're flaring up all over your body, try to get a family or a friend to help you out in the kitchen. You also don't want to stay in one position for too long because that'll have your joints start to freeze up and it'll be a lot harder to open your hand and do some movements. You don't want to do repetitive motions because that will cause your joints to start flaring up, like chopping up food. So if there's something out there like an electric tool that chops it for you, it's going to be a lot easier to do that than to do it yourself. Here's what you do want to do. You want to break down the task. If you can marinate the chicken in the morning and then cook it later at night, you want to split those tasks throughout the day, right? If you can do it the day before, even better. You want to make sure that you don't do it all at one time and that you try to split it up throughout the day. That way you're not so tired. You also want to use ice to ease the pain during flare ups. And you always want to keep in mind your posture. So, as someone who's tall, I definitely always like hunch over and bend and reach over when I'm cooking. So, if you're someone like me, try to get a chair, sit up straight. That way, you're always remembering of your posture. So, bring your shoulders back, keep your chin back, and always keep your head at eye level. And that brings us to the end of this presentation. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about how to make cooking easier in your life. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.